So I am building a side hustle where I'm helping small businesses grow through workshop marketing. And this is the channel that I'm using to kind of document the process. And in one of the previous videos that I did, I talked about having an amazing hook, that thing, that interesting thing that's going to get somebody, the thing that you're trying to picture in your head is, what can I do to get somebody to willingly and excitedly get in their car, drive a half hour or more, and come sit down in a room to listen to us talk for an hour and a half or more. What is that hook? It's got to be something valuable, right? It's got to be something that's going to speak to a big pain point and provide a lot of value to them, right? Which is the case. But there are some folks that might want the benefits of workshop marketing who don't have that, who don't have like this big problem that they solve. They've obviously got a good product or service and they're in business, but the problem that they're solving isn't that big need, that big problem that some other companies are solving. And there's nothing wrong with that. Every business is different. And so I think back to a company that I did some work with back in 2020, who their whole business was seminar marketing through dinners. So they were dinner seminar marketing. And they would sell things like stem cells. They would sell things like remodeling. They would sell things like stand-up bathtubs, stuff like that. So those are all good things, right? I think, I don't know anything about stem cells, but like remodeling and solar and siding, like these are all good things. And these are products that people need and want. But they're also, for most of the time, not products that are like this huge burning, like, what was it in marketing, we might call it like that gaping wound, right? That gaping neck wound, like, oh my gosh, I'm bleeding out right now. I've got this huge problem. And so like I say, not every business solves the gaping neck wound problem. That's totally fine. And so, but when you're trying to build out a workshop, what is that hook that's going to get people to actually want to get in that car, drive a half hour, and then some? And so the answer is, aside from what you're offering, you've got to have something that's interesting or valuable. So in their case, for example, they used food. They would do these at steakhouses. And I've seen this in financial services, oftentimes steakhouses. You see with timeshare. People know they're going to be sold at a timeshare. People don't want to be sold at a timeshare, yet they still keep showing up to timeshare presentations because the bonus that they're getting is valuable enough, right? They are getting the promise of a free vacation or whatever, free hotel. I don't know. In fact, I remember on our honeymoon, when we were a couple broke kids, we went to a seminar presentation, I think to get some tickets to a show or something like that. And boy were the salespeople bummed out when they learned that we were just a couple young kids that had no money back then. But anyways, the point being, whenever you're building out your workshop, the thing you have to be considering is the mindset I'm trying to get into is that person that they have to literally get off their couch, get their keys, put on clothes, drive a half hour or more to get to you, and sit for an hour and a half or more to hang out with you. And so is there a big problem that you solve? Then that's that's your hook. And if there is not a big gaping wound problem that you solve, then you'd better have something interesting and valuable to give to them. Now, when you do this, there's going to be certain restrictions, obviously, right? So, for example, this dinner seminar company, I believe, if I recall, it was taking $100 to $200 to get people in that chair. And so when I say $100 to $200, I'm talking about the cost of advertising plus the cost of the meal. So $100 to $200 to get somebody in the chair, which for them, I don't know their exact close rate, but and it's the same for timeshare, for example. I don't know the exact close rate or anything like that, but for them, $200 to get somebody in a chair, worth it, right? Because if they're closing 1 out of every 5 or 1 out of every 8, but that's but the value of that customer is much bigger. Obviously, it's worth it. But that is also one of the values of doing workshop marketing for a type of company, for an offer rather, that is more of a gaping neck wound offer, right? And those gaping neck wound offers tend to center around health, wealth, and relationships, meaning If you can dramatically improve their health, their wealth, or their relationships, oftentimes that's a gaping neck wound. And so things like, at a high level, so things like a kitchen remodel, that does improve things for people, right? Like it improves their relationship in their home. It can improve their wealth as far as like the resale value of their home. Like there's certain things like that that it can improve, but not in like this gaping neck wound way. Unless there's some people that just absolutely need it now because they're selling their house in 2 months and they need they need the value that they're going to get from the remodel, for example. But if you're in business to business, say, and you're going to share with people how to get customers, that's a gaping neck wound. If you're in health and you're going to share with people, who need to lose 50 pounds or whatever, that's a gaping neck wound. If you're dealing with somebody and you're going to show them exactly how they can find, the person of their dreams, that's a gaping neck wound relationship type problem. And so, do you have a gaping neck wound? I need to stop saying that. That sounds too repetitive. But do you have that big problem that you solve? Great. You can probably get people in seats for a lot cheaper. And so your margins don't have to be as strong. But do you not have that? Fine, you can still fill a workshop, but you might need to be adding some incentives on top. Something of a big deal, a really nice meal, a vacation, something along those lines in order to get people in those seats.